Hello and welcome. This is our weekly roundtable discussion focusing on alarming and trending issues in Ethiopia. I'm your host Solomon Danye, joined here by my colleague Binyam Alamayo and our guest Dr. Demis Janalo, who is an economist by profession. Today we're going to talk about one of the alarming issues challenging the well-being of the country, economic sabotage. The government recently issued a directive temporarily suspending all lending by banks that uses assets such as buildings as collateral, and that's because it found out that an orchestrated economic sabotage has been taking place in the country. We'll be discussing the matter deeply. Good to have you both here.
Thank you.
Well, let's first see government's concern. It's been complaining about an orchestrated economic sabotage to cripple the government by attacking one of the basic pillars, which is the economy. Commenting on the suspension of all kinds of loans using collateral, State Minister of Finance Yop Tekaling said, quote unquote, "When you see that economic sabotage is purposely taking place, you immediately take measures because it destabilizes the economy." I think this tells us how serious the matter is. Dr. Dems, when do we say economic sabotage is taking place, or what are the indicators of economic sabotage?
Thanks. First of all, economic sabotage in a very broader terms has to be looked at from the role of the major actors in the economy. In typical economic system, we have four major actors. These are, households, consumers, producers, service providers, government, and the fourth one is the external or the foreign component. And all these are coming to the system through three different markets, and these are the major three markets are the input markets, the production market, and the financial markets. Now, economic sabotage is any undertaking that is going to undermine the functioning of the economic system or make it dysfunctional in a broader sense. But more so, when you consider outsiders, foreigners, they have used it actually as the means of having prices, tariffs, and the like to make government change, by over-to-covert actions. So broadly, these are actually what we mean by economic sabotage in a system.
Good. Binyam, the government recently arrested 57 individuals who were suspected of engaging in economic sabotaging activities. And it can be considered as a sweeping crackdown by the government. What can we say about the economic sabotage taking place in the country?
Okay. Thank you, Solomon. It should be clear that this economic sabotage currently going on in the country is a pile-up from the past 27 or so years. That's close to 3 decades. And so while the Tplf was in power as a federal government, it established from 1994 onwards about 34 endowment companies. And these were owned by its own generals, cadres, and Politburo members. And these endowment companies were established using funds and property looted from all corners of the country. And it should be mentioned that upon its entry in Addis Ababa, the Tplf confiscated and looted property from government offices and facilities built by public fund. And the former Tplf officials then siphoned out billions of US dollars through corruption and illicit financial transaction. So that means this pile-up made the country among one of the 10 African countries most affected by illicit financial flow. And the three sources of illicit financial flow during these 27 years in Ethiopia were trade misinvoicing, informal remittance systems, and illicit transfers by embassies and diplomatic officials. That is, Ethiopian officials working overseas as diplomats were also involved in this. And then during the past 3 years, Tplf expanded its sphere of influence by using its close to 3 decades rule in the country, and thus it had a very well established grip on power. So it used its connections to expand the economic sabotage in various areas such as foreign currency, inflation, and other man-made economic challenges. And over the past 9 months, the Tplf has vandalized and destroyed schools, clinics, and infrastructure, particularly in Afar and Amhara. And this is part of its effort to dismantle the political power and also cause economic backlash. Over the past several years, the Tplf has also continued to loot villages, individual households, and shops owned by local merchants. And this again is part of its effort to destabilize the economy in general. So that's what has been taking place during the past 3 years.
Good. What makes it so difficult is, I think, from these individuals who are suspected of engaging in corruption and economic sabotage, there are government appointees. One of them is the head of Public Procurement and Property Disposal Service. So I think because they are functioning in the system, they can easily maneuver in the economy. Dr. Dams, how serious is an economic sabotage in a country like Ethiopia, where more than 110 million people live in?
Okay, thanks. Let me take this opportunity to give a bit of a background about this issue. In fact, I started writing about this issue about 25 years ago. But more so, we did a study for Christian International Aid about 7 years ago with my colleagues, Dr. Tadas and Dr. Burhanu Sisai, on economic injustice in Ethiopia. And more so, I wrote a book in 2015. In that book, I raised issues which indicate that Ethiopia is at a crossroad. Given its economic growth and development, is facing a big challenge, and I raised 35 issues. One of the 35 issues is revolving around the issue of economic sabotage, corruption, and rent-seeking. I say the country is facing a big challenge on the economic system, being sabotaged by those actors coming from within. As you said, when we say within, it could be from the government system, it could be from politicians within, which are using economic, instruments to sabotage the politics, and therein. It could be the business community and so on and so forth. But it's not only coming from within, but also in that book I explained even some leaders in Africa and some governments in Africa can be used to make Ethiopia's economy getting sabotaged for the purpose that those who are behind it are actually trying to achieve. And certainly the economic sabotage that can be commissioned, even with billion-dollar projects by multinational corporations. So with this, actually, what you said is correct in this country. Starting from the ground up to top level, there are people in the government system who are actually helping the sabotagers. There are people who are actually sometimes involved in a direct way to make the system collapse, even at a lower level when you get economic services, getting licensed itself, or getting utilities like electricity, so on and so forth for your business. Okay, it can start from that simple, but to a very complicated, level. What has happened on prices, for example, as you know, most prices, be it agriculture products, food crops, non-food items, have faced a big increase recently. And part of this is because of the sabotagers that are playing within the market system. Okay, there are reasons, and I think the government came to understand late. They thought it is something related only to the political sabotaging system, but it is a serious problem. Such activities have ended even in bringing government changes in some countries. Okay, and we really say a lot about these things, but yes, you are correct, within the government, but also outsiders are also involved in this case.
I'd like you guys to talk a little bit about the black market foreign exchange. The government has been encouraging the Ethiopian diaspora to send remittances using legal means to dry their sources. And as far as I can recall, Abiy's government made crackdowns on these black markets 2 times, but they are still functional. I mean, they remained intact. Black markets are common everywhere in the world, but it's worse in Ethiopia. They are asking the passerby whether or not they have foreign exchange notes in broad daylight. They do not seem, fearful of police or security personnel. Why does the government allow them to function this way, Binyam?
Okay, yes, I see this kind of thing being prevalent around Addis Ababa, and in particular in this area. We have people begging or rather nagging passers-by if they have notes for exchange, and they even encourage you, telling you the daily price and how it has gone up. And so, like you said, twice the government tried to stop this, but to no avail. But as far as the people in the economy are concerned, we're talking about people who are beneficiaries of the oligarchic system of the Tplf, and they continued till the present day. But when they suspected of a government crackdown, then they began siphoning out billions of dollars into other countries, into overseas, or by purchasing dollars from the economy using the resources they've already made during the past 3 years. During the past close to 30 years. So it's very difficult to arrest and control these people. The government is doing its level best, but still I can see that there's a backlash from the past. We have people unidentified, people who act as businessmen, investors, or political appointees, but with wider connections in the system still functioning. And that, I think, has worsened matters.
Dr. Doms, on to you. If the central government does not intervene regularly in the forex market, a black market will very likely arise, and the central bank will lose control of the exchange rate. What should the government do to deal with the issue?
Let me start from what has happened recently. Was it expected? If not, what made it happen to give us that spread between the formal and the black market, foreign exchange rate, which is determined daily by the National Bank? Let me give some statistics on that basis. Let's compare what has been gained by Ethiopia in terms of foreign exchange last year compared to this year. The total, for example, as you know, you mentioned one is remittance. Yes, remittance contributes to 30% of what we get in this country in terms of foreign exchange. We have exports of goods and services. For example, exports of goods, which you know is 3.6 billion. This year, exports of services, which is from tourism, so on and so forth, and other related, is about 4.8 billion USD. Remittance is about 6.3. And it goes like that. And for example, from direct investment, foreign direct investment, we got about 3.9 billion. And this totals up to the day of 21st of August 2020, the year record in case we had already 21.8 billion USD compared to last year's 20.4, which is a 7% increase. Then how on earth that when we have even, incremental foreign exchange in our hand, in our economy, that to happen in short? As I said, this is nothing but something is happening in the economic system to undermine the situation that's going at present, or to make additional fueling to the crisis we are in because of the war. And as Binyam said, some of these are coming as a lag from previous activities. But definitely, if you see what has happened in the short period and the intervention that the National Bank took when it comes to property selling, so on and so forth, and lending and offering collateral by the banks. Then the next day, a 10-point, 15-point, decline. And it continues. Now, there are different things that may trigger to this one, but the National Bank is taking some more measures, to control this. The day before yesterday, they triggered 4 instruments, the reserve requirements, the discount rates, so on and so forth. All this contributes to control. You don't have to go directly, because there are 3 major players in the foreign exchange markets. The National Bank is one in terms of regulating. The other are the dealers, formal and informal dealers. And the third one is the banks. What we expect is it's not only in the dealing and in the informal market, but in the formal banking system, there are some corrupt practices, which are also fueling all this. So I think this is what we say about economic sabotaging that's coming from different actors. And yes, the government has to take what it's taking. Actually, had we not controlled it by, saying, intervening in the property market, the National Bank did, and the continued instrument that the government is using when it comes to the reserve requirements and the like, it could have led to a difficult and complicated also crisis on the liquidity crunch, which the banks to come and then say that they don't have, because there are certain twists that can. I believe, whether this is my belief, I believe there are certain foreign forces also behind it. Because those which Binyam indicated, those who are fighting us, may use economic sabotaging for this purpose. And one means is to come into the foreign exchange market with a tremendous amount of dollar and try to take the birr from the market and use the birr to actually buy some properties. I have warned Ethiopians not to sell their assets and properties at this time, openly, because the entire system is not under normal circumstances. So I think this is how we have to look at it from the actor's point of view and from the National Bank perspective, as well as from what the government is doing. I think it's a fight. I believe more will come, which all parts have to do well, really, to fight what's happening on the economic front, as it is also on the military side.
Very good. Binyam, in conclusion, do you have anything to add on the solution that the government should take to deal with the matter?
Like Dr. Demis was saying very clearly, the important regulatory processes and measures are being taken by the government, but it takes some time before we see concrete results. But still, the National Bank's measures, I believe, are very important in addressing the liquidity crunch, and the overall economic system may get better as time goes by. And these individuals who are siphoning billions of dollars, as well as buying property from the market with the stated objective of emptying the amount of money that circulates in the market, and in the process destabilize the economy, may find it discouraging to operate in a system very well regulated. So I believe that is a very important step in the right direction.
My colleague Binyam Alamayo and our guest Dr. Demis Janelo, thank you both for your excellent expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's it for now. We'll see you next week, same time. Goodbye.